just like in leadership, an entrepreneurial organization goes through several stages. A lot of them start out as one-person operations. Yes, we talked about co-founders yesterday. Sometimes people have co-founders, but typically, let's close that. But typically people may start out as a one-person operation or maybe just with one partner, something small. And some entrepreneurial businesses choose to stay this way. They don't want to grow. They just want to, especially if you have a specialized skill, like you are an accountant and you are providing accounting services. You might stay a one-person operation, and that's fine. But over time, many entrepreneurial organizations do turn into more of a player coach operation, where maybe you now have a few employees and you're still very involved in the day-to-day operations. You are, working yourself on the business, but you're also giving some guidance to your employees. And so you're working together, but you are sort of the coach and your players are working for you. Oops. Are we good? Did I miss something? Yeah. Okay. Just making sure. All right. So that is the second stage of an entrepreneurial business as it grows. Right? Then when the business gets even bigger and grows even more, we reach this point of intermediate supervision, where now you, as the founder, entrepreneur, might have someone reporting to you, or maybe multiple people who report to you as your employees, who then have people who they manage, right? Your business has grown. Maybe you have, a CEO and a CFO and other kinds of top leadership roles, and those people have their own teams that they have hired, and so they manage those employees. And you might hear about issues every now and then, or you might meet most of the people, but it starts to become a bigger organization. For a lot of entrepreneurs, this is where it starts to get really hard. Walking around your company, the company that you built, and not knowing everyone who is in the building. Maybe you didn't personally hire all of those people. That can be a really strange feeling as someone who started as a one-person operation. Now, it's not to say you couldn't start, some businesses, especially if they take on funding, like we were talking about yesterday, they might start at stage 2 or stage 3, right? They might start much larger than that one-person operation. Not all organizations start at stage 1 and move up at a range. You might also skip a stage if you grow really, really fast. Then we get to stage 4, which is a formal organization. This is where you really have probably functional areas. You have a marketing area, you have a finance or accounting area, you maybe both. You might have a production area. So you start to have all these different departments. Your organization has grown. You really, there are multiple levels of supervision for employees. And as the founder owner, now you have a much broader span of influence, but you also really don't know all the people in your company, right? So you're much farther down the line from that one-person operation if that's where you started. For some entrepreneurs, this is amazing. They thrive on this. They feel like, gosh, I always wanted to lead this huge organization. I was meant for this. Look at all that I've created. But for some entrepreneurs, they are miserable when they get to stage 3 or stage 4. They love being in the work, doing the work, being there. So let's look at how that changes over time. All right, these little graphs show time. It's just kind of a visual representation. It's not exact, but it's showing the time spent managing, which is that kind of greenish bluish color, and the time spent doing, which is the white color. So in stage 1, that one-person operation, you might spend 1 hour, a little over an hour a week managing things. And that might be like, setting up sales calls or answering the phone or, preparing to send to distribute your product. But the other all the other time in the day is spent doing the thing of the business. You might be, if you're, creating websites, you are programming. If you are the accountant, you are doing the work of your clients. You're doing that accounting work. You're meeting with clients. If you are a salesperson selling a product or service, you are on the phone selling that product, delivering that product, delivering that service, whatever it is, you are working on doing that yourself. Okay? This is, maybe you don't want to do that, but you're the only person. Like, it falls to you. In stage 2, where maybe you have a few employees, probably not very many, a couple employees, some people working with you, you still have about 3/4 of the time where you are still working. You are still doing the programming. You are still making the sales calls, wearing all the different hats, right? Doing all the different tasks. And you have a little more time where you're communicating with your employees. This is how I would like this to be done, or let's, focus on this week. So you do have some time where you're kind of leading the group, but, a little more than when you were by yourself, but you still have a lot of time spent doing. By stage 3, with intermediate supervision, suddenly you have so much time where you are managing. Why? Because you have so many more people who are working for you, and they want benefits, they want insurance, they want vacation time, they have problems, they want coffee instead of tea or both in the break room, they want, desks and chairs and pictures and all sorts of things that just weren't even on the table before. Who cared? No one had time to care about those things. Now you are the person who has to care about those things, right? All of a sudden, you are the person who has to manage, who has to be the administrator. And for a lot of entrepreneurs, this is where they start to feel like, ugh, this is not what I signed up for. I'm an idea person. I love to program, and I'm not programming anymore. I'm dealing with all these human resources issues. That's not why I wanted to do this. So some people at this point become what we call serial entrepreneurs. So that means that I'll type it in the chat. That means that they are, starting one business after another, maybe. It's even hard for me to spell entrepreneur, and I have to do it multiple times a day. So, they're sometimes called serial entrepreneurs because they like to start the business. They like to build the business to a point where it's growing. But by the time it gets where they need to start formalizing things, they need to start dealing with employees. You can't just go out to coffee and hire someone. Now you need to have applications, and you need to review those applications and have several interviews and decide who the best candidates are and do background checks or other kinds of things. So it just becomes too much for some entrepreneurs. All right. And then even more so for the formal organization. So by the time you get to a formal organization, which means that there's the expectation by employees that there are policies and procedures in place, that if someone wants to have a baby, that they know what the maternity leave policy looks like, that if someone, wants to take vacation, They know exactly how many days they have or how many hours, or if they're sick, what that looks like, how much sick time they have, or if something happens, God forbid, like a pandemic, like COVID-19, that there are policies that are put in place by the organization to say, here's what we're going to do, right? So a lot of entrepreneurs just don't, this is not the kind of company that you envision when you are by yourself programming websites in your living room, right? You want to build a big company. You think about the success and the money that will bring, or the recognition, from your friends, from your family, but it can be very difficult.